my name is Sydney, and today I'm here to give you an update writing vlog sort of thing. Just a little bit of context, I have been working on my project Stormcloud. I just started the first draft about a week and a half ago, and I made a video about starting that first draft, how I felt about that and how difficult it was for me to start that first draft. My previous writing blog number 3, and I'll link that down below. Got really emotional in that video and I'm actually really proud of that video because in that video I admitted a lot of things to myself that I hadn't yet said out loud that I really needed to say, just to get past that in order to be able to start writing the first draft. And so I did. Right before I started that video to about a week later, I wrote about 20,000 words, which is crazy because I mean that was just like 3,000 and 4,000 word counts every day. About 7,500 of those words were from a previous draft. So between April and August of 2016 I wrote the first draft of this story, which I say first draft, but obviously it's gone through like a million renditions since 2009 when I first got the idea, but that was the first time I wrote the draft from start to finish, and that was a really important milestone in my writing career because that was the first time I'd ever written a draft from start to finish. Normally I would be jumping around like, oh, I want to write this scene today, oh, let me go back and write that scene, and then it would be all these gaps in the story and there'd be a lot of continuity errors, and it made it really hard for me to be motivated to go back and fill in those gaps. But the way I do it now is if I write from start to finish, I have to fill in those gaps before I can get to the more exciting bits, and I think that works a lot better for me. In working on this new draft of my story, with all the new world building I did, and I thought that it was going to be so different from the previous draft that I did that I could just call it a first draft, like of a new rendition of the story. But as I've been writing the first draft, I've been realizing that it's actually very similar to the book before, but it's a bit better because those little threads of world building are more visible in the story, whereas in the previous draft I had world building, but it was very small scope, but now I've made it a bit bigger scope. So a lot of the same sort of things are happening, but it's bigger, it's better, and I'm really excited about it. But I've realized that in working on this draft, it's actually not, because it's not so different from that draft, I can't really call this a first draft. So I'm just going to say that it is the second draft of this story. So my current word count as of yesterday is 22,574. Yesterday being Sunday, the August 13th. So 22,574 words, which is cool. But the last few days have been a bit of a struggle. I think it started about Friday the 11th. I sat down to write and I wasn't quite into the story, and I'm like, okay, maybe I just need a break. Let me go do something else, come back later today and try it again. And the same thing happened on Saturday and yesterday on Sunday, where I try to write this story and I'm just not feeling it. So I realized I might be out of my honeymoon phase with this story, which is kind of sad because it's only been a week. Yes, I've written 20,000 words, but still it's just already. I have an outline, like I know exactly what scenes are coming next, but I think it's just the world building. I'm having trouble, like, I guess, applying the world building. I guess because there's so much new things happening for my character. She's in a new place, she has a new role, and she's meeting a bunch of new characters. Like, I'm learning this world with her. I think it is because there's so much new things going on, and because it's the first time that I'm really seeing the world building I've done take effect. But I don't know. On Saturday and on Sunday, when I couldn't work on this draft, I found myself wandering down to our kitchen. Not because I was hungry, but because I had the urge to like bake or cook something. I went down to the kitchen 3 separate times to do this with this urge, and I ended up not making anything any of those times because we have food in our fridge. There's no reason to cook or bake anything. And it wasn't until yesterday, the 3rd time when I walked into the kitchen, that I realized the reason that I have this urge to go in the kitchen and cook something is because I'm trying to compensate for the fact that I've not been able to make something with my story. Last weekend, right when I started this draft, I actually went to a farmer's market. I got an eggplant, a zucchini, and a squash, and like a few other like nectarines, peaches, like basically a bunch of like fruits and vegetables. I made zucchini bread that week, and I made like a vegetable pasta thing, and both of those turned out like really good, okay? Like, I'm a decent cook. I just, you know, sometimes I put together some random concoctions and I'm like, I'll eat it because I know what's in it and I made it, and you know, don't have the money to just be throwing away food like that. But also, like, I wouldn't serve this to nobody. Like, my mom, she's like me, like we're both very picky about our food, but she actually really enjoyed it. I think that was also part of why I went down to the kitchen, like, okay, I've done a good job this week in cooking things. Maybe I should try that again because it's been proven successful recently. As long as you have the ingredients and a recipe, you can just do it, right? Which you would think the same would be true for working on a story. As long as you have an outline, the plot, characters, these kinds of things, you should be able to just write it, right? But no, it's not that easy. I decided yesterday, after my final attempt of trying to write my story, and it just wasn't happening. I ended up working on a puzzle. I completed like a 300-piece puzzle. I completed the puzzle in a couple of hours, and then I started working on another puzzle. But I also, throughout the weekend, was watching a lot of YouTube videos of other writers talking about writing. One writer that I like to watch on YouTube, her name is Shaylin Writes, or that's her channel name. I was watching her monthly update videos, like seeing her talk about, you know, her monthly schedules, like things that she has planned for the next few months. It started like making me think about how I know that I work better when I have a loose schedule. And by that I just mean like where I give myself an allotted amount of time, like 1 week or 1 day or 1 month to accomplish a certain amount of goals, as opposed to being rigid, like on this day I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do this for this amount of time, then I'm going to do that for that amount of time. I don't work well like that. And so I thought, okay, why don't I try to do something like this with my writing? Through the rest of the year, I started setting some creative writing goals. And I don't know how well this is going to work because I usually do better when it's 1 month at a time. This will be a really interesting experiment, so I thought I would just share with you what my goals are for the rest of the year. So I'm working on Project Stormcloud now, like I've been talking about, and it's August. I'm hoping that I can get to about 50,000 words by the end of the month. I don't know if this is possible. I think it can be possible if I can get back some of my mojo that I had this first week of the month. So like I mentioned before, how of the 22,000 words I've written, about 7,500 were from a previous draft. I'm still including, like if I need to snatch a scene from the previous draft, I'm including that in my word count. I am making note of how many words I stole from the draft versus how many words I wrote from scratch. It's a total of making this manuscript hit 50,000 words. So that's for this month. For September, I hope to finish the Project Stormcloud draft, hopefully, because I want to use October to return to my edits on Project Pitchfork, the story that I put down recently. When you have to edit a story, you do need that distance because you need to figure out what are the things that need to be fixed. And you have to actually have an open mind to be able to consider ways to fix these things. Because what my problem was in trying to edit this draft, like right after I finished it, is that every time I had an idea of how to fix things, the other half of my mind was like, no, I can't see that happening. I don't want to do the work to make that happen. Then I even started tricking myself like, oh, it's perfectly fine the way it is now. Like, no, it needs to be fixed. But now that I've had even just like a little bit more distance, I've allowed myself to not think about this story for long enough that I'm starting to have that open mind. The same ideas of how to fix my story are a bit more appealing to me now. So that's what I'm hoping to do in October, is try to edit one draft of this story, which will be a task in and of itself. And I'm hoping that that won't take me the entire month. Like maybe if it just takes me 2 or 3 weeks, it probably won't. It'll probably take me much longer than that. But I want to use the end of the month at least to start preparing for NaNoWriMo in November. And if you don't know what NaNoWriMo is, it's National Novel Writing Month, which is where, you know, a whole bunch of creative writers around the world try to write 50,000 words in 1 month. And you don't have to write 50,000, but that's just kind of the set goal that they have. So for NaNoWriMo, what I want to do, by then, if all goes as planned, I will have finished writing the first draft, or I guess the second draft of Project Stormcloud. I will have edited a draft of Pitchfork. So I'm going to let those 2 stories rest. I'm going to let them take a break, right? I have a third story, a third project that I have had on the back burner for a couple of years now. I've written the beginning of it. I've written like maybe the first 8,000 words. I've planned about a third of the story. And I have an idea of how it ends. But I have put it on the back burner so I can focus on these other 2 projects. I can't work on more than one story at a time. So that's probably another reason why this next few months are going to be a challenge, because I'll be jumping back and forth between one story and the next. So that story, the third project, I'm calling Project Wicked. And no, it's not Wicked as in the Wicked Witch of the West. It's actually interesting because the 2 projects that I've talked about on this channel are fantasy stories. This project, Project Wicked, has like no magic whatsoever. I don't know if I would call it a contemporary because it's kind of dark. I don't know if I would call it like a thriller, suspense thing, but it's got a touch of that. It's kind of an adventure story as well because there's quite a bit of traveling that's going to happen. I don't know what genre it's in right now, but you know, the point is I have a clear idea of like who the characters are and like how I want the story to go. I want to plan out this story. I want to outline it. at the end of October, so that way I can try to write at least part of a draft of this for NaNoWriMo. This is going to be really interesting. It's going to be really interesting. And for December, I haven't decided what I want to do yet. I'll either continue the draft for Project Wicked, or I'll try to edit a draft of Project Stormcloud, because it will have had a couple months to simmer by then. So that's all that I had to talk about today. That's my kind of where I'm at now. Yeah, I'll let you know how the schedule thing goes. I actually kind of like doing these writing vlogs, so I think I'll probably try to do one maybe once a week or once every other week. We'll see. I hope you guys really enjoyed this. Down below, let me know how your writing projects are going if you have any. Give this video a like, hit subscribe, and I will see you next time with more videos to come. Bye! Partially